When the Minister of Finance read the last budget, the total number of dollars to be expended was not all to be earned during that 12-month period. $3 billion of it was to be borrowed to make up the package of what we spend in that year. And every 12 months we do that, and let us hope that we are in a position always to be able to service what we have borrowed. Because if you think things bad now, if it ever happens on any day that when they call on you, or when the date comes to pay either the interest or the capital you can't pay, that is when you know you are in big trouble. Because there's something called cross default. If you borrow 10 loans and one of them you are not able to pay it on a Monday, all the other lenders immediately tell you, I want my money now. And that's the danger that you have to avoid as a government all the time. And you have to look at how much you're borrowing, how much you can do. I tell you this so that you can understand that there's a limit to what a government can do. Some things are a priority. Medicine for the hospital is a priority. Hundreds of millions of dollars a month, priority. Getting our children in school and teachers paid, priority. National security, keeping you safe in the country, priority. And even though I know many of you would think that we're not doing enough in national security, we are doing a lot, and it's expensive. As a matter of fact, throughout our history as a nation, every national budget, the number one item in terms of quantum of expenditure was always education. Recently, one of those years, I think, or 2 years, because of our attempt to respond to the growing criminal element, for a year, I think it was 1 year, it might have been 2 years, where national security expenditure had exceeded the expenditure on education. Meaning that we had to be spending more money to treat with the miscreants who have taken crime and criminal conduct as their way of life. And the rest of the nation was paying that price. The options that we have are usually pretty standard. In dealing with crime, I know that many of you believe that it has something to do with the personnel at the level of the government. But I do not believe that the people who choose to do crime do it because of who is in office in the prime minister office or who is the minister. They do it because they feel they will get away with it, they will benefit from it, or that is the easiest way to make a living. And whoever is in office face that thought process from a number of citizens. And those people who are thinking along that line, under our constitution, doesn't matter how I vex about a crime, doesn't matter how I feel that this thing happening in the police service, there's a limit to what I can do in terms of the actual action of the prime minister in a situation. Because crime and criminality under law is the responsibility of the security services, the police, to go and find the information and apprehend, and the prison service to keep you in the prison. The government's role is to provide the resources so that the security agencies can function efficiently. We can't give them the whole budget because we have to look after the doctors and nurses. We can't give them the whole budget because we have to pay the teachers. We can't give them the whole budget, so there's a limit to what we put in national security, even as the criminals are gallivanting through the country. What we hope and expect, and what our management systems should deliver to us, is that the people who we hire and whose job it is, that they do that job so you don't have to get, more and more and more of them. So that's why we are always keen to remove from the police service or other agencies people who are not functioning or who are engaging in criminal conduct. And that is why we are making the resources available for the police service to function, for the prison service to function, for the intelligence agencies to function, because that is our responsibility, which is funded and is there for them. Now, I noticed recently in Tobago, the whole idea of your safety and security is in the forefront. And we must do everything possible to prevent Tobago from becoming another criminal playground. Because, as I said earlier on, Tobago is separate and apart from the larger bloc of the nation. That should work for us in fighting crime. It's a smaller population. You all know each other very well. Many of you very well know who the criminals are. And I'm not asking you to expose yourself to them. But as best as you are able to, you will do yourself a favor if you know who are the ones threatening your safety and security, and you let it be known to the security services in Tobago. You will do yourself a favor. Because in that way, we can root them out, minimize them, and ameliorate the effects of criminal conduct on the population of Tobago. We must do everything possible, and the government, at the Office of the Prime Minister, at the Office of National Security. I did receive from the Chief Secretary a little while ago a request to meet and talk to me, because people like the show. But, you know, the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary, under law, need to be doing government business. We need to talk. But when we talk about national security, at the end of that conversation, it will be the Commissioner of Police and the departments of the police service and the security services who will have to carry it. And, you know, in one breath, they would say that the Prime Minister mustn't talk to the Commissioner of Police. So therefore, you can't tell the Commissioner of Police where to send the police officers or where to send departments of the police. But let me just say this, that I have not breached any law in talking to the Commissioner of Police, but the government has ensured that the Commissioner of Police is aware of Tobago's situation, and the Commissioner of Police has taken action to beef up the security in Tobago to give you greater safety and security. There will be a unit of the interagency task force here in Tobago. These are police officers who act immediately. They're specially trained, and they act on information about criminal conduct, especially on fresh or growing criminal threats. A unit of that would be in Tobago, and the Guard and Emergency Branch will have a presence in Tobago to assist the normal police officers. There's also a request, and recently this came about. There was a meeting between the minister, a large team of national security people, and the Chief Secretary, and that meeting took place in Trinidad, as far as I'm aware. And out of that meeting came some of what I just told you there. And the idea of Tobago having a constabulary force separate and apart or in addition to the National Police Service is something that one has to understand what is being said there. I know in some conversations that mean that Tobago wants its own police service. That is not what I think is being said there. National security under law will remain the responsibility of the central government, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will have responsibility for Tobago as it has for Carinage and Tunapuna. But we have already in Trinidad taken steps to put an additional layer of community policing in the corporations. And we did so through the Municipal Corporation Act. And we trained, I think that we are aiming for 1,000, and I think we are just about there, because the last batch was supposed to have been trained sometime not too distant. But the last time I checked, we had crossed 800. And all the corporations, we had police officers added to the Central Police Service. So whereas before Arima, Port of Spain, and San Fernando had city and borough police, we're now giving the municipal entities their own, and we're strengthening that. Those police officers are meant to function more in patrols and be more community and to provide assistance to what we already have. So it's not to be taken as something out of the ordinary. But for it to happen in Tobago, because we have the Municipal Corporation Act in Trinidad does not apply in Tobago. Tobago has the Tobago House of Assembly Act. What we found about 15 years ago, a proposal came from Tobago, actually a draft bill, to do just that. So when you hear that story, now we got anything new. However, that draft bill upon examination would have required a whole plethora, a series of amendments to a number of laws that it became too complex and too unwieldy. And it did not get past the cabinet at that time. That's 15 years ago. What we've done since we've been looking at it is to see whether the arrangements that cause us to be effective with the Municipal Corporation Act, whether a similar kind of arrangement looking at the THA Act would allow us to make some manageable amendments to allow Tobago to do what we have done with the Municipal Corporation Act in Trinidad. So I've asked the Attorney General to look at that, and hopefully in the not too distant future we'll get some answers and we'll see a pathway towards Tobago having this second level of police officers, the community police officers who can do certain things. For example, one of the problems that we have is the misconduct in our schools. Fortunately, I have not seen much of it in Tobago, but too frequently we see this violent conduct in schools, where school children end up, some people blame it on the COVID lockdown, some people blame it on an absent or proper parenting. But whatever it is, this is one of the areas where that community police officer regime can focus to ensure that you have close relationship between your school population and the requirement for good conduct at school age and beyond. So those are a couple of the things that are in front of me. One third thing I want to raise before I turn the floor over to you. I'm here in Tobago. I was away. I just came back here on Sunday. While I was away, you had a consultation on the Rocky Point Hotel as a requirement for Tobago to proceed in that. I simply want to say that a lot of people in Tobago rely very heavily on the government allocation for their sustenance through make-work programs. That is nothing to recommend as development. That is something to get away from. And how do you do it? You have to expand and grow the economy in Tobago so that jobs, good jobs, can be created in Tobago and wean people off this morning work nonsense. It is because that is the thought process in the government why the office of the Prime Minister, with private sector encouragement, literally went and encouraged the most successful tourism brand in the region and or maybe in the world, in the Caribbean for sure, and invited the Sandals Group to come to Tobago, which was one of the missing areas because you had Sandals in Bahamas, in Barbados, in Jamaica. We said Tobago's turn had come, and Tobago's turn came. And you all, those of you who kept your mouth shut, allow those who figure their point of view must prevail, and those who felt that it is a political damage if it can be stopped. And unfortunately, they succeeded. And while we are now still talking about what we do in Tobago, St. Vincent has it. It was opened in March. The same sandals you didn't want in Tobago because it's going to kill you. And it will involve all kinds of manima. It has been built and is operating in St. Vincent now. Jump the queue. Right? Additional one in Barbados, additional one in Curacao, in Aruba, and in St. Vincent. But Tobago still doesn't have it. But you have morning walk. Right? Where by 7 o'clock in the morning, and I could tell you, once in a while I'm here in the morning and I'm going up to my farm at 7 o'clock. And the workers who cutting the road, cleaning the road in morning work, I didn't see them, but I see that they were there because they cut 20 feet of grass. Right? And that is supposed to be a job. And if you don't get that, you wouldn't vote for somebody. But let me tell you all something. If that is how you vote, and that's what you vote for, you will suffer after election day until the next election. That's what happens. But I simply want to say to you, there are opportunities in Tobago for a development program. And the government ensures that when the national budget is made, there's a development program where additional development takes place in Tobago. Right now, we are building a new airport terminal building in Tobago. We are also trying to attract private sector investment into a marina. These are infrastructure items that are required for Tobago's economy to grow and to expand. And we also want increased number of hotel rooms. The government is not going to build any more hotel rooms in Tobago, but the government will encourage the private sector to build those rooms. And what we are aiming for is for Tobago to become a serious destination where there could be proper airlift, which is what Sandal's strength was, rooms of high quality. We used to have 2 golf courses, we have 1 now, because this is the only country where the Prime Minister gets pilloried because he plays golf. As if it's something bad, right? Mount Irving is now a sheep's pasture. I could tell you something. Barbados has 6 golf courses, 4 of which are world class. One of them, they hosted the world championships there. The other one is probably one of the best private golf courses in the world. And of course, there was one that was failing. The new government did some adjustments and they redid it. That golf course is now the most effective growth area in the economy of Barbados right now. I was there a few months ago. On the day when I was there were 1,000 people working there. 1,000 people were working there. And they've raised on that project $250 million by just having the project going on. And while that going on in Barbados next door, nothing going on in Tobago. Mount Irving, which used to be a world-ranked golf course. Mount Irving Golf Course was ranked one of the top 50 golf courses in the world. It has turned into a sheep's pasture in Tobago. So while we're here talking all kind of foolishness, opportunities passing us by, and people who know what to do, do it. And people in Tobago talking about, don't do it until I get into office. Well, you're in office now and nothing is happening. Huh? And I simply tell you this, because the government intends to do everything to support the creation of that private sector project at Rocky Point, because you need it. You need it. And if you could tell me how Rocky Point Hotel will stop waves from coming in down behind Mount Irving for you to surf on, when you tell me that, I will give back my geography degree. And finally, what I want to say on that, right? The Jamaicans have a saying, right? Belly full man does tell hungry belly to keep heart. Those who inherit their parents' house and money and business and things could come here and tell you nonsense about They want to surf, so don't get hotel rooms at Rocky Point. Ask them if that will pay your bill or give you a job. Ask them if that will grow Tobago's economy, right? And I am saying you could have both. You could have the surfing and you could have the hotel rooms. That is what you want. So get serious. And if we grow the economy in tourism, we grow it in agriculture, we grow it in sport, we are going to have a better Tobago. And a better Tobago is a better Trinidad and Tobago. So I open the floor to you and let us talk about your business, whether it's Tobago's business or national business.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're invited to come to the microphones to pose your question to the Prime Minister, remembering to keep it tight.
The Prime Minister.
Give your name and community, please.
Name, Selwyn Archer.
Name and village.
We call from Mount Pleasant.
Right.
I hope you understand that, my brother. First, I must say, a few places you could come and talk, you could get to talk to the Prime Minister. And I feel this is the only Prime Minister you could come out and talk to. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm here tonight to ask you 2 questions for a 19-year-old young man who spoke to me about 2 days ago. One, I want you to answer that for me, please, sir. I know he wants to know if you love Tobago because they're telling him the Prime Minister doesn't love Tobago. The other one, I don't know if it's you or the Minister of Finance, or you're not giving Tobago no money. That is the reason why he cannot get a job. So I'd like you to answer it clearly because I know you're listening, whether I love Tobago, yes or no, and if the Minister of Finance and you not giving Tobago money.
Let me answer the first one, and I'll ask the Minister of Finance to answer the second one. The first one is, as far as I am aware, when I checked last, the location where my navel string was buried is still there. I checked it this morning, and contrary to what has been said, it has not been dug up yet. But I'll say something more than that. I have a greater commitment to Tobago than the person who's making that question now. You know, I've earned money since I've never been unemployed while I was available for employment. That's one of the good things in life I always thank God for. I've never been unemployed. I started working, my first name on a pay sheet was in juicy factory, putting bottles in a case. And I eventually became Prime Minister of the country. The vast majority of what I have earned during that period, I have spent in Tobago. And I didn't only spend my earnings, I encouraged my wife to spend some of hers as well. And I did that. And if that is not love for this place, then I can show no more. Because I tell you, Tobago is a beautiful place which should be loved and cared for by all of us. Minister of Finance, could you take the opportunity to come to the podium and speak a little bit about the funding of Tobago? Because you see, many people make statements either because they really genuinely don't know, or they might have an idea, but what they say might be useful in a particular narrative for a particular agenda. But facts are facts. And we do not have an unlimited supply of resources. In every single area, our resource base is limited to some quantum. So we have to, like a parent feeding children, you have to be able to apportion it and spread it. So talk about Tobago's financing and Tobago's finances. I give you 10 minutes.
So long?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prime Minister, my cabinet colleagues, our minority leader, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I always wonder why these statements are made about the government, the Minister of Finance, and then here it was the Prime Minister. I always hear is me, not giving Tobago money. Now, it's a little known fact that when times were tough under the previous administration in Tobago, we did not have enough cash flow to give Tobago its subvention on a quarterly basis. We just didn't have enough money. Things were very rough in the early years, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and don't talk about 2020, when COVID came. So we struggled. So what we did instead, by arrangement with the House of Assembly, is that we would give them the subvention on a monthly basis. When the new administration came in, I believe it is December 2021, if I'm not mistaken, 10th of December 2021, the new chief secretary asked to see me. And my prime minister, of course, being somebody who loves Tobago. Did you answer that question, by the way, sir? I will answer it for him. So my prime minister, being somebody who loves Tobago, called me and said, I would like you to meet with the new chief secretary. This is 2 days before Christmas. So of course I started a quarrel and things. He said, you'll meet with them. All right. I think it was the 23rd of December. Christmas Eve the next day. Anyway, problem. So the new chief secretary came with his team and so on. And he said to me, I know that because of cash flow problems, money is tight and so on, that you were giving the previous assembly its subvention on a monthly basis. He said, I have a request for you. Could you give us 2 months out of the 3 months in advance, and then give us the third month in month 3? Because, there are 12 months in a year. So every quarter, we have 3 months. So he said, January, March, April, whenever the beginning of the quarter is, could I get 2 months? And then you'll give me the third one later. I said, okay. It was all in the spirit of collaboration. So this new assembly has been treated better. Now, I know they have some people inside here who would not be too happy. Mr. Jack, relax. I know they have people in here who would not be too happy about that, but that's what we did. So the new assembly is getting money in bigger blocks quicker than the P&M House of Assembly. So that's the first thing that needs to be known, because I'm sure you didn't know that. Okay? It was a request made by Farley. I agreed. Secondly, when I look at the numbers, the new assembly came in 2021, December. So their first full year would have been 2022. The second full year would have been 2023. When I go back into the numbers and I see the total amount of money we were giving the previous assembly, 2018, 2.26 billion, 2017, 2.27 billion, 2020, 2.34 billion, 2021, 2.187 billion, 2022. Total funds released to the House of Assembly, 2.38 billion, and 2023, 2.57 billion. The most amount of money released, this is not what is in the budget, because sometimes you have numbers on a piece of paper. A release is when you actually get it. The most amount of money released to the House of Assembly between 2016 and 2021 was $2,578,000,000 released in 2023 to this assembly. So I don't know what more I'm supposed to say. What more? They get the most amount of money and they get it faster. So I really don't understand that comment, but I guess if people don't know, they would believe. Because from a political perspective, I know things, not much going on over here. Okay? The only thing is going on, I toured the airport project today when I came. I always take the opportunity when I come to Tobago. I walk through the project, I look at progress and that sort of thing. That project is over $1 billion, by the way. And what I did not tell you, and I got those figures as well, this is direct releases to the House of Assembly. But in addition to that, the central government spends money otherwise through various agencies like the Water and Sewage Authority, the Port Authority, the Airports Authority, and so on. And over the period 2019 to 2023, that's the figures I got, the central government during that period spent a total of $2.9 billion in Tobago, in addition to the regular subventions that we're talking about. And I have a complete list. I could give you some idea of how the money is spent. I can't give you all this. It's too many pages, man. But, spend money on WASA, TNTech, CPEP, Tobago Reforestation, Central Statistical Office, Government Shipping Service. That ferry costs the government around $200 million a year. It is all spent by the central government. The THA does not contribute to this is operational cost. This is not the $1 billion that Dr. Rowley was speaking about to buy them, This is $200 million a year to run them. That is all spent by the central government, not by the THA. You have disability grants, senior citizens grants, social assistance, all grants given out by the central government, not by the THA. They have their own grant system. I'm looking at one particular year. Let's look at 2023. $133 million spent on senior citizens grant, old age pension in Tobago by the central government. That's not spent by the THA. Disability grant, $6 million. Public assistance, $6 million. On the job training program, $14 million, has all been spent by the central government. $14 million. $24 million on the judiciary. $10 million on the police. And it just goes on and on and on. So that is why we spend approximately $600 million a year, the central government in Tobago, on matters that concern Tobago. So I am not sure what else to say. As I said, it's pages and pages. I can't read all. So, Prime Minister.
Okay, I think that would have answered the question.
I think so.
But don't be surprised if the question is not answered. Thank you very much. Yeah, you see, fellow Tobagonians, these kinds of statements made by a person who is walking the street with no assignment or in a job that is required to be in the know could be just saying, well, the person is saying that because they really don't know or they just think so. And sometimes they're thinking that they think the worst. But when you get the statement coming from people who, office holders, that's where the trouble is. When the office holders who ought to know those facts, because what the Minister of Finance just said there would be known to any office holder who interrogates the national conversation in the parliament or the documents that pass through the parliament and are public documents in the budgetary process of the country. So the danger is not John Public saying so. Some people want John Public to think so. So they use the authority that they have to be in the know to make comments like that, either directly or indirectly, and leave you to believe that you're being hard done by a government who doesn't love Tobago and a government who is starving Tobago. And the reason why nothing is going on is because the government not giving you any money. That's the conversation. And you have to protect yourself from that. Because misinformation and outright malicious statements fill the ether, not only here in Tobago, in Trinidad too, and in fact, yes, in the world. You have to protect yourself from that, because what people are trying to do is to get you to make decisions after they position you to be angry or to hate based on what they tell you, which could be a great variance with the facts. They want to manipulate an action that you are likely to take. So you got to protect yourself from that.
Next question on my left. Comment, suggestion, or question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Prime Minister.
Good evening.
I am a Tobagonian by boat, and I have been a Tobagonian by boat for the past 5 years. I am from the Bonaccord area.
So you are Tobagonian by new boat?
By the new boat, that's right.
Okay.
And I live in the Bonaccord area. While you were speaking, Prime Minister, actually I have 6 questions for you. Quick.
Let's take 2.
Quick questions, but while you were speaking, another one came to me, and it is, why should we be funding things by borrowing and not by earning revenue? Because you spoke a lot about providing things through borrowing. And I wondered, as you spoke, why aren't we earning revenue to fund things rather than borrowing to fund things?
Well, let's deal with the question one by one. That is a particularly poignant question. I have never had that question put to me before. And I'm glad you put it. The reason why you do that, and not just the nation or the individual, is because you want to acquire something which you are not yet in a position to pay for. But you want it now. So you enter into an arrangement to have it now on a pay later plan. Now, because you are earning, does not mean that you are earning to fund what all that your desires are. You have desires beyond your earning capacity. And on the other hand, because you are wanting something, before there was a time in Tobago where Tobagonians did not incur any debt. I grew up in that era. I distinctly recall when I left school, and I didn't know about a scholarship yet. I didn't get a scholarship yet. One of my teachers right here. I wouldn't tell you who he is. But I left school wanting to go on to further education. And I had no means until I got a scholarship. And one teacher said to me, ask your parents to borrow some money and send it to the university. And I said, what? My family doesn't borrow money. Because we grew up in an environment where you didn't incur debt. What that does is that it can limit you to what your earning capacity or your earning level is. And you have a choice to stagnate or to use debt financing to grow. So there's nothing against borrowing as long as you can service the debt. That mic is there.
Prime Minister, I would think that after 62 years later, to be able to finance a lot more
and
of
that
what
is true.
we desire.
Another good question. Because what has happened in that period you mentioned there is that as fast as your earning capacity grows, your desiring capacity has grown even more. I remember when getting a new bicycle in Tobago was a big accomplishment. Now everybody's idea expectation is your own personal motor car. My first job in Tobago, big work. Fisheries assistant in the fisheries department, $169 a month. $169 a month. And a few of us had a big job like that. A secondary school teacher was getting $475. Ask her how much he was getting.
My first salary was $145 a month.
Right, but I'm sure today that is a day's wage. So our earning has increased. But don't sell ourselves short. Our capacity to do better, whether it is a better house, a better road, a better car, better opportunities for your children, better hospitals, better level of hospital care, over time, those things have improved. Don't fall into the trap of believing that we've made no progress. I tell you something. Which country is the richest country in the world? The United States is the richest country in the world. Which country has the biggest debt problem in the world?
The United States.
Well, okay.
So
earning and debt are not mutually exclusive. When you use debt to be able to grow at an earlier time or to aspire and achieve what you would not normally achieve if you confine yourself only to your earnings at that point in time. Your earnings, when you are in age 40 or 50, is servicing the house you built in when you're in age 36. So the two things are linked, and it has to do with management of the situation. That's why people are saying to the government, be careful how much you borrow, because you don't want to borrow and be in a situation where you can't service the debt. But as long as you can service the debt, you can continue to grow using deficit financing. That is what the Japanese did, that's what the Americans did, that's what most countries do. You borrow on the strength of future earnings.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Can I quickly read my questions and you can choose two that you would answer?
No. I would ask you to hold them, and if when we go around the room we have time and we come back to you, we can get another one of those 7 questions. Give somebody else a chance, please.
Okay.
Question on my right. Please state your name and village or community.
My name is Ansel Spicer, and I'm from Scarborough. Good night, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good night, Mr. Spicer.
Good night, everybody.
Right.
Mr. Prime Minister, when you started to speak, you said Tobago plays an integral part in the framework of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm speaking now about crime. I would like if you can make some allowances for social programs in Tobago, meaning my part, my lot, so we could get some of the youths off the streets who are doing this whole day on all street corners. The social intervention programs works in Trinidad. The My Lot program, the my part that was closed down. Tobago needs programs like that.
You have closed down?
No, my part in Trinidad was closed down. We don't have my part again in Trinidad and Tobago. We have My Lot, and it does well.
Did you ever have My Part and My Lot in Tobago?
No, sir.
Okay.
And we can take some of the youths off the street corners, all the street corners in Trinidad, especially Scarborough, where the youths only doing this whole day, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thanks for your contribution.
It can limit the crime situation in and around Scarborough and all the villages. Those programs will take the youths off the streets, sir.
Well, you'll take some, they can take all, eh? But it's a good idea, but don't get the impression that we can take all of them, because one of the problems that we have, program or no program, some of those people want no part of anything like that. And that is where, if I may interrupt you for a moment, that is where the family and the community need to get involved, because there are some of our youngsters who just don't want to take part in anything structured.
I understand you, Mr. Prime Minister.
But right?
We have to give it a try.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that because I have given the country 31 years in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I'm now back in Tobago. And Tobago is lacking that kind of control for the youth of Tobago. And you said earlier that Tobago plays an integral part of the framework of Trinidad and Tobago. We need some of those programs. I know we can't capture all, because in Trinidad, you couldn't capture all either. But we could start and we can try.
It sounds to me like there is a space and a role for such a program, and it will be considered.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. And this action that I've been showing you since I'm standing here is a serious action. This is every street corner you pass in Tobago, youths.
Well, it wasn't always like that, eh?
No, at all.
And we have to ensure that the programs that we have and the actions that we take at every level, right? It's a multifaceted problem, and the solutions are multifaceted, because people have freedom to do certain things, and one of those freedoms is to do nothing, right? And we have to be able to attract our young people into positive lifestyles. Unfortunately, there are other options which are not positive, which are deemed to be attractive, if only temporarily, in some people's lives. So the crime situation is not something that is going to go away overnight. It's not something we should feel helpless about, but it is something that we must continue to focus on to eliminate its existence at the community level, right down to the personal level. We have a situation where there are a number of facilitating environments for crime to grow in our country. And we have to identify them and treat with them in a variety of ways. There's no one switch that you flick and turn it off. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you very much.
Question on the next side.
Hi, good evening to all. My name is Kamaria London from Roxborough.
Well, you come on, see. Just before that lady speaks, I think the Minister of Community Development has a couple of words to say in the context of what we just talked about there.
Good night, Prime Minister. Good night, everyone. In response to the last speaker on the My Lat and My Path program, Minister,
step away from the
Minister Foster Cummings.
Go that way from the speaker.
Minister Foster Cummings, Minister of Youth, is already in conversation with the Tobago House of Assembly on the same. And we have other programs like Empower TT, where we're already working with young men in Tobago. We have this is our second cohort in Tobago, and we have 22 young men enrolled right now. But I know the bigger program, My Lat and My Path, Minister Cummings is already talking with Tobago House of Assembly on it.
Yes, the other lady over here.
Right. Good evening again, everyone. I am Kamaria London from Roxborough. My question this evening is, as it relates to the recent oil spill in Tobago and cleanup, were we able to seek and receive compensation from any international agency? And if yes, how much did we receive, and how will it be managed?
Thank you. Yes, that unfortunate development which came about, we have to be concluding from people's actions, people who did not want to know, the people who did not want others to know that they were involved in what was happening there. The ocean is a very big place, and a lot of things go on there. And that is why there's an international body which exists to come to a country's aid if you find yourself being damaged by an oil spill of that nature or similar nature. What we have done so far is that we have appeared before that body, we have made the case, it has been accepted that we qualify for assistance, and that program to get to the point of determining what we get, how much we get, that is actively underway. As a matter of fact, a team from that agency was here in Trinidad and Tobago a few days ago, and only yesterday morning, Cabinet approved for the requisite officer from Trinidad and Tobago to travel to the headquarters to continue these discussions. We are making a claim. It's approximately, I think we started out making a claim in the order of, because it's an estimate, because we don't know the final figure yet. But we've made the claim in the estimation of approximately $30 million US. That has since been reduced down to about, last figure I saw was about 23. And when all is said and done, and we know the actual expenses, we will know what the figure is. But we are there making a claim, and we do have a good reception. So how much, we don't know yet, but the order would be a not insignificant sum. Much of that money will have to go to the reimbursement for what was spent by the agencies, and it will also cover what was spent by the THA here in Tobago on the beach cleanup and so on. But the apportionment will be done by bills being shown to the agency. So we are there, and we are expecting some significant involvement of that agency.
Okay, thank you.
On the next slide, name and village.
Good night, Mr. Moderator. Good night, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good night.
My name is Wayne Pierre, all the way coming from Mason Tobago. I have two quick questions. Now, I realize that we have a crime rate coming up in Tobago. We have a crime rate of 10 now, and we're just in the 5th month. So I'm asking now, what can we do, or what can you do to somehow mitigate this problem here? I was looking at the street lights, the traffic lights on them in Tobago. They were supposed to be up and running, but for some reason, I don't know if they're working.
The what?
The camera, sorry.
The cameras.
All right. So, thanks for correction. Yeah. So, I was wondering if they are up and running, and if that would be able to help in some way or another.
Yes. Firstly, let me answer the part of the camera. It is my understanding that the 2,000 cameras that we have bought and installing around the country, that some of those cameras are in fact in Tobago. And if they are there, I expect that they are there for a purpose, which is to monitor the routeways in certain key and strategic areas, and the police would then be able to consult them or to look at them on a live, real-time. Basis to see what is going on, given to the private sector, and we're hoping that the Tobago private sector, business sector, would do that, because it does contribute. If the more eyes you have, the more the better the chances of determining who would have misbehaved if there's a problem of misbehavior, criminal conduct. In terms of what we can do, to reduce the instances of crime and make the place safer. What we aim to do is to not let crime pay. If there are people who believe they can commit crime with impunity, they will do it and others will join them, so there's an increase. But we have to have systems in place where for those who have broken the law and create especially violent crimes, that they are held to account and to be held to account in a very real and effective manner, and then we get justice on time. Unfortunately, much of that is not happening. I mean, I can't understand for the life of me. In fact, it is no good business. And the criminals know it. If you manage to be apprehended, there's a very good chance that you will be getting grandchildren before your case comes up in the courthouse. And that is an area of serious concern to me. The police do a significant amount of good work, and they will apprehend somebody. And for some reason, the process of bringing that person to getting a jail cell or whatever conviction brings for them is now something to take place in the nether future. And then, of course, by the time the case comes around, the outrageous nature of the crime seems to have been reduced because that happened so long ago. That is 15 years ago. The other day I was looking at a situation where a woman was complaining that she was raped 15 years ago and was in the courthouse still talking about the matter and wanting to know when the case will be tried. That, to me, is a bigger problem than talking about the Prime Minister need to change the Minister of National Security. And many people who work in the area of managing the affairs of criminals, one of their strongest defense is Mr. Delay. And we need to get serious about that, because I have seen in countries where there were serious crime problems, they eliminated delays, they bring people to court, they dispense with them, remove them from the society, and it has brought down the crime. We are seeming to go going in the opposite direction. Opposite direction. When I grew up, we were no more barbarous than we are now. And when I grew up, if you were charged for murder, you had no bail to get. And I never knew about anybody killing any witness. But in this environment, this is when we are now talking about English conditions, where you get bail for murder and you come out and you have a gun again. What the hell did you expect? And we are following other people's situations which are not fit for our situations. And I'm saying this as a citizen, because I will say the same thing when I'm not in this job. Because we need to get serious. I mean, you sometimes I read the papers every day. I could tell you all that. Every day, the first thing I do, sometimes the last thing I do before I go to bed, I read the papers, depending on what time I'm going to bed. And I want to know what the country is being told, what happened in the country. And the two things that get to me when I read the papers, one is when people, especially children, are hurt in violent crime. And two, when people use the system of justice in a way where you say they benefited. The perpetrator has benefited, not the victim. That gets to me. And I feel helpless in that situation because there's always some reason and some excuse. And I'm not really attacking anybody personally. I'm just talking about this, that famous word, the system. Right? We have people out on bail who are conducting criminal business. And part of the business is paying the lawyer and paying the bailman. And it's a business to carry on. And the system facilitates it because the system is skewed towards the rights of those people and not the rights of the victim. And until we begin to look at some of these things from that perspective, they'll be laughing at us all the time. Because Mr. Delay, right, diminishes the horror of crime when crime takes place. So we need to be able to dispense justice faster and more effectively.
Next question.
Yes, is my chief secretary here?
Yours, you have?
My chief secretary here? All right, I still like to pose a question. Now, Mr. Prime Minister and people from the Assembly, I am working with the Division of Moria, all right? And I'm facing with something right now, and I really want to bring out this question so somebody could really help me out with this. Now, we have some young people that take on in the department. You know, that they ask for work and they give them some work. But here it is that they're not performing. They are not performing. And here what? Different from that, you give them PPE, you ask them to buy them for the first fortnight, take your time, be working without the PPE, and then when they get your salary, you buy a PPE. You could buy the cheapest one. I've been a road overseer. I'm in Plymouth, where the young lady died, they killed. She was working on my team. Right. What I'm saying is that you try to help them in some way or another. Right? I bring PPE from home. I ask other workers to bring their PPE and give them. They did that. Every day they come to work. You have to tell them, hey, you have to go back, you know. You ain't equipped for work yet. And on top of that, you know what they respond? But I know your work. You can't tell me that. What me I bring gunman for your work? And it happened on different teams in Tobago, yeah. It happened on different teams. They're threatening the foreman and them. It's a hard thing right now. It's hard. And I was listening to a program where Mr. Farley Augustine was giving a statement on the radio or something. And he was saying that when he tried to help them, but somehow by 7 o'clock they finish working and they're going home. They're going on the road. So when they ready to check it out, they don't really want that. They don't want the work. You understand? They just want salary. And I wonder now, if for tomorrow, when people like me, I have 2 more months in the government sector to go home. So when people like me go home, or they decide to take on people in the assembly to work, right? Everybody want a early morning work. You understand? So when I take them on now, and I put them to work, what will happen? What's going to happen now? It's really hard.
Okay, I think we get the gist.
Yeah.
Well, what you have identified there is a very deep-seated problem. A very deep-seated problem. And that problem is question of values. And that goes right into the household. Right into the household. Because you see, if children are being raised not to understand that responsibility is part of your upbringing and would be part of your life, then those children will not contribute or imbibe the concept of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. On the contrary, if what they are being taught and told, either individually or by the general conversation, that the reason why they are without a meal today or because they can't change a shoe or a shirt is because the government didn't give somebody something. And they are entitled to it and the government wicked and the government bad. That is what you end up with. And that is what I was saying earlier on. I tell you, when I pass 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't see the workers. They're gone home at 7 o'clock. When were they there? And these are issues that you have to address in a societal way, because some people are encouraging it and others are being hurt by it. I remember one day, many years ago, I was in Barbados with my wife, driving around Barbados on vacation. And I stopped and I said to her, I said, look. And she said, look away. I said, look. She's looking all around. I said, look, a man there walking with a pickaxe and a shovel. 2 men, one had a pickaxe, one had a shovel. They were squaring potholes at 3 o'clock in the evening. I said, this is 3 o'clock in the evening. Look, them they working, fixing potholes. I said, where in Trinidad and Tobago it have anybody even at work far less to be working at 3 o'clock in the evening? And you see the threat that he mentioned there? That threat? The crime and criminality that some people are engaging in this country, they extend it to that level. And it has been reported to me that there are teachers in school who face the same threat. So who is going to free us of that? We have to have programs that change the values in our society. It's a value thing. It's a value thing. When I was growing up in this country, I couldn't go home with a pencil that my grandfather didn't buy. But of course, if you are entitled without effort, then all kinds of things are going to happen. And I say this not to be critical of any particular person or any particular system, but we have to be honest with ourselves. What is happening? What is happening? I was doing an exercise in a particular area, giving out gifts to children. And I would have given out about 300 gifts. And I could count on one hand the number of children that said thank you. And I'll tell you worse than that. I'll tell you all worse than that. I'm at the top of the stairs. And I saw a child down there changing his clothes, taking off a jersey, and being pushed by his parent because he had come up already and got one in a shirt. And when he got down there, the mother took off the top shirt and sent him back up. A 10-year-old child. And this is what is going on in our society. And we're using English law to deal with that. But in England, I'm walking in Beaconsfield. Nobody on the road except me. A man has a tray outside with tomato seedlings with a little note, 5p each, leave money in tray. And I look in the tray, and the tray had endless money in it. Understand what I'm saying? But the only people who this country holds accountable for anything is the government. I'm not against being held accountable. Hold the government accountable, yes. Hold the ministers accountable. Hold parliamentarians accountable. But it is not magic. And anybody who promises you magic is trying to fool you. And these are incomplete conversations that we have to have with ourselves. I was coming to Tobago a few years ago, more than a couple. And in the airport, there's a little boy, about 7 years old, with his father, a man who appears to be his father. And the boy was being a little bit troublesome, running up and down and interfering with people's things and so. And the father held him firmly, put one kick on the father. Yeah. And I watched that. What is the next action? There was none. not a talking to, not the Tobago thing. And I'm saying, but if this is what is happening, what are we doing? What are we doing? So let us be aware of it and maybe resolve to come back to it. Because that is where a lot of the solutions are going to be. The values. I mean, what kind of youngster goes into a house knowing that there is an infirm elderly person in there and violently abuse that person to take away what little he or she has in that house? The question I ask myself is, who parented that? And it may be because I belong to a different era, that I see it that way. And if I'm offending anybody, I'm sorry, but that's the way I see it. Yes.
Next question.
Good night, Prime Minister. My name is Keston Williams. I am from Darra Spring. The question for you tonight is, when the people at Tobago could get the completion of the A&R Robinson building terminal? Thank you.
The completion of that project, it's progressing quite nicely now. I get monthly reports, and the Minister of Finance is also involved. It's second quarter of next year. I think it's second quarter of next year. There were some hiccups, which had caused some slowing down when we got past the design stage, and we had to do some re-engineering. That was done. All the problems are now identified. It's smooth. It's going very smoothly now. I was here in January, and since January they have had to report on a monthly basis, and the reports are quite encouraging. Right?
Thank you.
Next question.
Good night. Good night, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good night.
My name is George Bob. I'm originally from Runnymede, Mariah, now living in Lowlands.
So you left the highlands for the lowlands?
Well, I like to mix them up. Mr. Prime Minister, my issue, I intended to ask 2 questions, but I'm going to ask only one because of the list of people who still need to ask questions. My issue here is, this evening is one with respect to the credit union and how they are being run. With particular reference to the Runnymede Credit Union. Right now, it's in a state of pre-collapse. And this has been happening since 2012, where the last AGM that they had at the Runnymede Credit Union is 2012. Since then, although you have unauthorized and arbitrary spending and so on, etc., there's a race to the bottom with respect to that credit union. We have been trying to get the government, the members of the credit union have been trying to rectify things and resolve things within the credit union. But in doing that, you have people who are, cussed and calling you filthy names, etc. So we have been trying to get the government institution responsible for the supervision and the oversight of the credit unions to come in and help us to rectify the situation. But there is no response. There is no response. As a matter of fact, some of the responses is you get dismissive, negative, and contemptuous. So I'm coming here tonight to ask you to give us a commitment to have these institutions intervene and help us to rescue. People cannot get money from the credit union now. They are hurt, they are bleeding, but nobody's there to help us. As you know, you have the old ballad which says, "Who can I turn to?"
All right. I'm not clear. Is credit union a central government? The central government.
You have the Cooperative Act. Go ahead.
But the central government institution has a responsibility for overseeing credit union activities in Trinidad and Tobago. But is the Tobago aspect of it with central government or with THA?
Basically, the central is the Cooperative Act gives the...
No, hold on. Wait, I know that, but I'm saying...
We have a cooperative department here.
But is
they
that...
They are not responding.
Wait. What I'm asking... I know there's the cooperatives come under the Cooperative Act, but with respect to discharging the operations of the Cooperative Act in Tobago, is it with central government or with the THA? I couldn't answer that question. No, I have to find out. But certainly, your complaint has been heard. I don't know if the Minister of Finance has any comment to make on that, because he might know a bit more than I do about the supervision of credit unions. Because there is under law arrangement for if what you are describing there is happening, then there's some failing on the part of the supervision of the credit union.
Exactly.
You can't have a credit union handling money and they haven't had elections since 2012. Right? So we need to have, we take note of it, and the Ministry of Finance will look into it.
It's because they are really hurting.
Well, having raised it, the Minister of Finance will make a note of it, and it's Runnymede Credit Union. Well, I'm glad to hear that you have a credit union, because credit unions are very valuable if they're properly run. And if you still have one and you're still willing to participate, then it must be supervised, and whatever shortcomings exist, the law has provision for it. But I'll tell you something. Even though the law is there for a purpose, and if that purpose is not carried out, then bad things can happen. And you are talking about a credit union. I remember, I want to remind you all about Hindu Credit Union. When there was a call for it to be investigated, you remember what happened? There was a resistance to have the investigation take place. And the Minister of Finance had to apologize, or chose to apologize, because he said he was going to investigate it. The long and short of the whole story, when it did collapse, it cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Right? So you have a little problem in Runnymede, the Minister of Finance will look into it.
A big problem in Runnymede. Thank you.
All right, let's hear the Minister of Finance, please.
This is one of the areas under the 5th schedule of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. It's listed cooperatives, but the supervisor is in Trinidad. So I will look into it and see what could be done, but it is a THA responsibility under the 5th schedule. So maybe that's the problem. I will check with the Commissioner of Cooperatives in Trinidad. Okay?
Thanks, Minister. It is now past 9:45, and we'll end at 10 o'clock. So we have less than 15 minutes again to go.
Okay.
So we can.
I see we have some people who are already standing.
Yes.
Well, let's finish with them and give them the opportunity to speak, even if we have to go over a little bit.
Yes.
Right? So place your questions quickly, unless it's...
Good night, everyone. Good night, Prime Minister.
Good night. Thank you.
My name is Gavin Walters from Hope. And my question is to do with crime and the detection rate. I'm very concerned about the fact that we have hundreds of murders every year. And you hardly get 10% detection, right? 500 people may be killed in 1 year, and there's not 50 arrests. It's a major concern. And well, I wanted to talk about the issue of cameras, but somebody raised it before. Because I saw a video recently from China where they have 7 billion cameras throughout the country. It makes crime a very difficult thing to commit because they are so monitored that even if they wear any type of mask, because of the technology, artificial intelligence, they're able to unmask anybody, right? So that is a deterrent in itself. And crime detection is also a deterrent because if you know you're going to get caught, you're not going to commit the crime. Understand? So I don't know where we are with forensic and the technology in the forensic. We have NOM and DNA and this kind of thing to help with the detection rate because there must be a deterrent. Thank you.
Thanks for the contribution.
Thank you for your contribution. It falls back into this whole question of how much resources we have, how much we are allocating, I would say that we are in fact doing as much as we are able to with respect to the allocation of resources. Those technologies that you mentioned there are in fact, some of it available, but extremely expensive. And it's a question of affordability. All right, so we try to get what we can afford and to make use of them. And the detection rate, we keep trying to improve that by improved policing. And it also requires a community that is disposed to sharing information with the police, because 7,000 policemen cannot be assigned to cover 1.3 million people at close quarters. When things it's quite likely things are going to happen away from the eyes of the police officers, and then they'll have to try to detect who did what. And that makes the job so much harder. And of course, the cooperation of the community can assist with that. And the central government and other governments provide whatever resources that we think we can afford, and we work towards that. It's not a fight that we should give up, and it's not a fight that we should think that we are in fact going to lose. Our approach is that we're going to win it, and we are going to go after every criminal that comes to our attention who have engaged, especially in violent crime, because it poses a threat to everybody else in the country.
Good.
Yes, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Honorable Prime Minister. My name is Kevin Phillips, and I hail from the village of Mason Hall. My question pertains to the very ambitious project of central government, which is the Digital Transformation Drive, which aims to enhance the competitive potential of our nation as a place to live and to allow us to have a more frictionless interaction. What role does Tobago play in that very ambitious project in enhancing our technological capacity and enabling us to be contributors to that process? And the second question I have pertains to, you would have expressed a desire for us to become a more productive society within the Tobago space. So that means that we have to be more skill enriched. What opportunities can central government provide in the midst of the demarcation point between THA and central government to provide those opportunities for us to become a more skill-enriched society? That's my two questions.
Well, the whole question of becoming technologically advanced, you would have seen that for the first time in this government that started in 2020, this administration of 2020, we have a ministry of digital transformation. And incidentally, that ministry is led by a Tobagonian, Minister Bacchus. We are making some significant progress with respect to, as a matter of fact, only yesterday we had a report at Cabinet as to how we are progressing with respect to the unique identity, the e-identity. We are getting help from Estonia, and the minister has been to India twice. We are getting significant help from India because we don't want to be inventing any wheel. We want to be able to use what has already been proven and what is available. So we are making some significant progress, and the minister did tell the cabinet yesterday morning that in the next couple of months or so, we will see some significant advances or some report as to how we're advancing on the whole question of the identity. The digital life that we are after certainly will provide us with greater efficiencies. I mean, the technology allows us to get away from tons and tons of paper. The cabinet now meets virtually because I'm the only person who gets paper in the cabinet because I actually have to sign them and put them in. But the rest of the cabinet functions off an iPad, right? And I mean, I do cabinet from Tobago. And I mean, I do things off my phone, right? So we are already benefiting. The banking system is out there, and I mean, a number of ministries are quite advanced. I am hoping that before not too long, that the health department, the Minister of Health reported yesterday as to what we're doing with respect to moving the health department, people's health records, and of course, the management of consumables in the system. The intention is to be able to manage all of that digitally. What that does, it hugely increases it. It also provides the opportunity for significant reduction in corruption, because the identification of who did what, where, when, and how, the digital world is very good at that. So we are putting some resources into that, and we are making some significant progress. I did tell the Minister of Digital Transformation yesterday that given the work that his ministry is doing, given what is happening in the country on the subject you just raised in the way you've raised it, that ministry needs to be louder and talking more to the country so the country could know what is happening, so people can prepare and not be surprised by it. We need to prepare for it because some people are still afraid of it. And some people are still resisting it because they don't have the skilling, the upskilling you talk about. Because they don't have it, they decide to want to preserve the status quo, when in fact what is required is quantum leap and change. Yes.
Good night, everyone. I am Mariska Thomas, a conflict resolution coach from Scarborough area. I specialize in helping youths to resolve conflict before it increases or it escalates.
Who do you work for?
This sole trader. I used to work with a company, but now I've taken it on for myself.
How do you get paid?
I have clients who would engage with me.
Hold on.
Yes.
You know, I'm kind of a little bit backward on it. When you said that, I immediately went to the school system, but it appears as though you in marriages. So that's where the money is, right? Couples, right?
No, for me, what I do.
How do you get paid for the work you do?
Children have parents, and there's a need based on the things that we see.
Okay. So it's a private sector initiative in managing societal problems.
Right.
Oh, very good. That's what I want to understand. Very good.
So, thank you. So, what I'd like to know is there a space for someone with my skill set to work alongside the current guidance counselors, social workers, the police even, to assist youths in teaching them the skills necessary to avoid conflict or to resolve conflict in a healthy manner?
Well, I would think the answer to that is a big yes, because God knows they need that. Whether it is the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Family Services, the police, or the general community at large, but we do need that, because a lot of the violence that we see, the counter violences, is because of conflict. Sometimes the conflict is so apparently nonsensical that it results in violent activity. So if there's an initiative, I must applaud you for taking it, because it's not the kind of thing I thought someone would have been doing as a vocation. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much.
Good night, everyone, and good night to the Honorable Prime Minister. I'm Anil Kunkun from the Annesville District. Am I here tonight to talk a little bit about farming suggestions and some things that has been in the air for quite a while with TATCO. And for some strange reason, people take it as a joke. When farmers in Tobago working hard, they take us for a joke. I feel so. Because when farmers wake up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, to see 200 chickens, 500 chickens, 70 goats, whatever they have, or 2, let's say 2, they don't take us serious because food is not important. As far as for the last month, that's how I have been treated. Food is not important.
What is
TATCO? And the facility.
No, but why is there a problem with you, and what do you engage in? You're farming.
Yes, and we have, when we go to certain agencies, government agencies, where we're supposed to be greeted and treated a certain way, and the facility is not functioning for whatever reason, farmers are not being told that. We are not, that's why I'll start that we're not being respected. And when we get there, all kind of things happen and we get turned away. And I'm here to make suggestions tonight, as you as being the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, that Tobago is in a bad place because there's no ice, right? For when farmers slaughter, because they say there's no water right now. Because it's on their page. I'm not making it up. And all these things, right? That is what's on their page, right? I'm not making it up, and I wear a crazy jersey tonight, so I know nobody cares. I representing myself and farmers. So I am suggesting.
I did papers a couple of weeks ago thereabouts where they were having freezing issues.
Right, because the facility, as the chairman Ricardo Alfred said, it is an old facility. It's not even aging, it's old. It's no longer, it's not there. We need a new one. So I am here tonight and asking that as a Prime Minister and the only one on the island, right? The only one on the island to service fisher folks, agro-processors, business people, and farmers. Can we see where we can get a new facility?
Well, I don't want you to invite me to assume the THA responsibility, because I'm sure even as we are talking here, there are those who are monitoring what is said here. And one of the, notwithstanding anything positive that may come out of this thing, the first thing that they would look to say is the Prime Minister come to Tobago to disrespect the THA and to assume their responsibility. So I don't want to be truthfully accused of that, because I seem to know that TADCO is in fact an entity of the THA. And if there are these problems that you're raising there, I trust that THA personnel and the minority leader, THA person, he has a responsibility too. So that these things can be focused upon and that the THA will take responsibility as it must. So, I can't, let me just tell you how it goes, and I want you all to understand this. I went back to Mason Hall Government School when I became Prime Minister. I paid a visit to my primary school. And while I was there, the same way he's asking, the principal asked me if I could help with a photocopying machine. And I said yes, because I thought as Prime Minister, managing a multi-billion-dollar budget in the country, I should be able to give Mason Hall Government School a photocopy machine. You don't have enough time tonight for me to tell you what flowed from that and how they eventually got a photocopying machine. Because the lines between the central government and the Tobago House of Assembly sometimes could be made out of concrete. Right? I almost couldn't do it. I eventually got it done, but it was amazing. And therefore, TADCO's problem that you're having is something that I could raise with the THA, but I'm sure the minority leader could raise it more effectively because he's sharing a chamber with the person that's responsible. And therefore, farmers all around tend to get the cold shoulder and then people hungry, Whereas when they're hungry, they know what, But in terms of the importance of what you're doing, I don't think anybody will ever get up and tell you to your face that you're not important and why you're doing not important. It's just relationships, and sometimes we have bad systems in place. And one thing in Tobago, it might be true in Trinidad as well. In Tobago, I must say, for somebody who grew up in Tobago, I find that we are becoming less and less productive and don't give a damn. There was a time when a Tobagonian used to get hired for having come from Tobago because you would have come with a certain panache and a certain value system, and you are known for certain things like Tobago peas and Tobago potato and Tobago dasheen. That Tobagonian is becoming a rarer and rarer breed because we are copying right? And it's hurting a lot of people. So I trust that you having raised it here, that something will happen. Okay?
One more thing. I don't know if it's possible because I know with the whole THA Act and the central government, farmers in Tobago has been asking this government, right, with whatever little meetings they have, for a feed mill and a hatchery. A feed mill because farmers in Tobago, when they have to bring feed from Trinidad, it is costing us way more. So we can't compete with Arawak and them when they come here at no point in time. And they will always put us down. And with the chicks, if we have our own hatchery here, that problem that we have when we bring the chicks, we had to put them like in a recess room and turn doctors to bring them back alive, just to save we money that we just put out 10,000, 5,000. You understand? And I'm hoping that maybe something could happen, not far in the future, but very close, where we could have these things sorted out. If Tobago is to go somewhere with agriculture in a serious way.
There used to be, not new, eh? And the way it was solved, there used to be a central marketing agency that brought the feed here in bulk and then sold at minimal profit. That is how it was dealt with. We replaced that with saying that there was a faster ferry available, because in those days, the boats used to take 8 or 12 hours to come to Tobago, and sometimes don't come at all. But the absence of the central marketing agency is left now to the transportation that comes. And it is a real problem. And the people who engage in it from the private sector, I don't know what kind of markup they put on, but I do have a little bit of knowledge of it, and it's not small. And so I know the THA had taken the initiative to buy a fishing boat. That boat still exists and still fishing. What is it called? Capital of Paradise. So the THA was aware of that kind of problem in the fishing side, and the THA intervened and has a fishing boat out there fishing. I don't know that the door is closed and the THA doing the bulk movement of the material, but I tell you, if you try to operate your own business, the economies of scale will work against you, because Tobago is in fact a very small market. If you do a hatchery in Tobago, it's going to be a micro hatchery. And then it becomes uneconomical, because a chick might then cost $10 or $20. And then of course, if you make it operate through the THA, well, God help you. And because the workers would not want to come to work, and the chicken will die at work. So the problem, you don't want to create one problem when you try to solve another problem. But I think the transportation system can be improved, right? And the handling of chickens from Trinidad to Tobago ought not to be a murderous thing. It's a management thing. So, coming together, the farmers need probably to come together and make the managers who handle the animals know that these are animals that are very tender and could die in transit, and therefore they should be given some priority and so on. But to say, well, the way to do it is to have a feed mill, because if you have a feed mill, you have to import the inputs, you have to import the grain. And if you have a feed mill that's only doing 5,000 bags, how many shiploads of grain you gonna import and handle? So that is one of the problems that you have when you are small, that you don't have the economies of scale. And then even if you have those two things here, if they are not economically run, you will still be outcompeted by the person from Trinidad, because if a chicken hatched in Tobago is going to cost $10, somebody going to go to Trinidad and buy a chicken for $2. Understand?
Prime Minister, our last question for the evening.
Good evening, Honorable Prime Minister. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Prime Minister, permit me to extend my sincerest condolences to you and your family on the passing of your brother.
Thank you very much.
And you being here today speaks to your commitment, not only to the Trinidad and Tobago, but to the island of Tobago. So we thank you. Give the Prime Minister a round of applause.
Thank you all very much.
So my name is Keegan Dinoon, and I come from the best village on the island, which is Boko.
Hello. I'm a fan of Buku too, eh? But if you want to play that game, let me know, you know. Because I know what you all said about Mason Hall, have no crab. And if Buku is claiming to be the best village, you got your school last.
We just saved the best for last, Prime Minister. Save the best for last. So earlier I heard you speak about a marina. Could you update us as to where the plans are and when we could expect that marina to be here on the island in Tobago?
Yeah. In looking at what Tobago needs from an infrastructural standpoint and what would contribute significantly to economic development in Tobago, the same way we have agreed that we need a functioning modern airport, that analysis showed that we need and can attract significant business and create significant employment if we have a functioning marina. For two reasons. One, Tobago lends itself to a lot of sea sports. And fishing around Tobago could be sport fishing, could be a growth area for Tobago. But to do that, small craft that would be engaged in that fishing would require to be fueled, and they would require marina services. I remember 15, 20 years ago, we used to have in the Tobago fishing tournament 30, 40 boats coming from all the way Martinique, St. Lucia, Grenada. The absence of a marina killed that initiative. We still have the Tobago tournament, but it's not nearly what it used to be. Instead of growing, it shrunk. So a marina could bring that kind of business to Tobago. It also could create for Tobago the potential for business that is not now done. I'm sure you all would know by just looking at the news how much hurricanes create damage in the Caribbean now. And in parallel with that, a huge insurance premium rises. And Trinidad and Tobago, we just happen to be just below the hurricane belt. We hardly get hurricanes. And therefore, if we have marina services here, then we could offer that to the Caribbean boating population, where the people who have boats that they keep in the Caribbean and keep their fingers crossed. They could keep those boats in Trinidad and Tobago. And if Tobago has a proper modern marina, you could get some of that marina business. Once the boats come here, they bring with them air transportation of the owners, and they bring opportunities for skills to service the boats. They bring opportunities for onshore business, whether it is rooming, whether it's restaurants, whether it is art and craft services, night entertainment. All those things go together. So a marina in Tobago is the next item we believe is required as part of the infrastructure. You must be able to come to Tobago and fuel a boat without it being, jumping through hoops. I've seen boats come into Pigeon Point there, and you have to come to Scarborough or go down to Bonaccord to get fuel in handheld containers to go and fuel the boat. You're not serious. Right? So that's the government had started out looking for that. We went out, and contrary to what you have heard, the THA was involved in that matter with the central government, Ministry of Marine, Ministry of Works. The THA and the central government, we were out looking to advance that argument and that possibility, and we're still out there hoping. The government is not sufficiently revenue flush to come and fund something like that now. You may have to wait if you have to wait on the government, but we prefer if the private sector is encouraged. And I can tell you there are one or two private sector people who have indicated an interest in wanting to do it in Tobago, but they want the government to at least play some significant role. But again, that is government policy. If the government is required in some way to bring the private sector along to get it done because the nation needs it, a lot of the businesses that we now have in the country were spawned in that way. So we don't have a plan on the table right now, a drawing, but we have areas of interest. But then again, I was talking recently to somebody who was interested in discussing it, and they're saying, we talk about Cove. The reason why Cove was chosen at the time when it was chosen is that it allows for the marina to be a large area, so you can hold a lot of vessels. So it's not just boating for Tobago, But if you're talking about holding vessels from the Southern Caribbean, you need a large holding area. There's also the possibility of a small marina west of Magdalena in the Natural Bay there, which requires just the opening of a small reef there. And of course, there's the deep water available in Charlottesville, but Charlottesville doesn't have any on-land flat area to support the growth of a marina in that way. So we have to make a decision. And when you make that decision, we have to go with it. And that is one of the areas of infrastructure that the central government is willing to work with Tobago on, so that Tobago can have it as part of its growth area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And before I leave, next year we are celebrating 100 years of goat racing. So I'm personally extending an invitation to you as the president of the Boko Village Council, 1, and 2, if you could give consideration to us having a public holiday on that day. Thank you very much.
Well, I will tell you 2 things on that. I will tell you 2 things on that story. When I was growing up here in Tobago, I thought my father and his friends were total idlers, leaving home to go down to that place called Buku to watch goat and crab run. I could not comprehend the level of idleness. Now it is what? It's a big thing in Tobago. He's asking for a holiday for the what? And in case you also don't know, one of the outstanding racers in the goat race, not this year goat race, last year goat race, came from my family. So I can lay claim to the breeding. So yeah, I don't know about it's from a practical standpoint, you all have made a holiday already. Doesn't have to be declared because Easter Tuesday in Tobago is in fact a Tobago holiday. It doesn't pass the bill on to the government or to the private sector, because once you declare it a holiday, somebody has to pay for the holiday. But right now, I think it's going. I think it's going well right now. So the unique nature of it has given us something to work with, and I trust that Eastern Tobago will continue to grow. You have your ferries now. 2,000 people per trip. Each one can 1,000 plus, 900. We can use them and I think I've seen some significant numbers in Tobago for Easter and your carnival in October. Let me stop the permanent complaining and try and appreciate the place and ask, what can I do for Tobago? Okay? Thank you all very much.
Yes, Prime Minister, is now 10:17 to wrap up.
Yes, well, the 2 hours have gone, 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I want again to thank you all very much for coming out and making this such an interesting evening into nightfall, and say to you that I trust that what we would have discussed here would have been a benefit. We can adjust certain things. We are a little better off in terms of information shared, and that we'll continue to talk to one another as civilized people, all of us who love Trinidad and love Tobago. Thank you all for coming, and we must meet again sometime.
Indian indentured laborers arrived on Nelson Island, which was once a site of Indian indentureship. They embarked on their voyage to Trinidad and Tobago, enduring challenges, but paving the way for a new chapter in the island's history.
This is TTT. Live for local. Live from Marival Road, Port of Spain, this is TTT News, first at 6 p.m.